Hello everyone and welcome to SEW-EURODRIVE's How-To series. We're going to be discussing how to maintain and take care of your product. So let's get into it. Today we're talking about torque arms. What are they, how are they used, and why are they needed? SEW-EURODRIVE has several different designs of torque arms that benefit the customer, such as you. But before we talk about that, let's mention a few safety reminders. First and foremost, always make sure your equipment is de-energized and proper lockout-tagout procedures have been followed before you begin any work. In addition, make sure that you're wearing all the proper PPE that's required for the job that you're going to do. That way you stay safe and the people around you stay safe. Now let's talk about the torque arms. The torque arms that I have in front of me all serve a similar purpose, but they're designed a little bit differently based on the type of gearbox that you're mounting them to. Why do you need a torque arm? Torque arms are designed to prevent the gearbox from rotating. Why is this? It's because of the fact that some gearboxes are shaft mounted. That means that the torque is being transmitted directly through the shaft and that the holding point for the gearbox is actually the shaft. In order for the shaft to be able to do its job and the gearbox to do its job, you have to keep the gearbox stationary, and that's what the torque arm is able to do. Now, there's a couple of things you need to think about when you're mounting a torque arm. First and foremost, you need to make sure that you put the torque arm in the right position, and we're going to demonstrate that in a moment. Second, you need to make sure that you have everything lined up as far as where the torque arm is going to mount to on your equipment. Our torque arms are designed to be mounted securely to our product. We give you a little bit of leeway when it comes to where you mount your equipment to the other end of the torque arm. And we're going to talk about that as well. Ultimately, the most important thing that you need to remember is that every torque arm has a complete and specific purpose, and that is to allow your gearbox to do its job for the equipment that it's mounted on. Let's take a look at some of the different torque arms that SEW-EURODRIVE has available. Here we have first, this is called our bottom mount torque arm. This is used on most of our K or right angle series gearboxes, and it's going to be mounted, you guessed it, on the bottom of the gear housing. This is where you have a specific housing design that does not allow for a torque arm to be mounted on the face. For those type of torque arm mounts, we have what we call the Banjo torque arm. This torque arm is going to be mounted to the face, and it can be used on our K series, also our S series, our W series, and you'll even find it on our Movigear mechatronic drive. Finally, we have our rubber buffer torque arm. Now this is very unique because, as you can see here, there really isn't a separate piece. The torque arm is built into the housing. This is our F series or Snuggler gearbox. But you need rubber buffers there to take up for any misalignment that there may be. And this is something that you will find in all of our torque arms. Let's get into how you mount them now. To demonstrate how to mount a torque arm, we're going to get started with our bottom mounted style torque arm. Here in front of me I have a K series gearbox. This is our right angle gearbox. And I want to just talk about a few things that you need to check before you mount this torque arm. First and foremost, you want to make sure you don't have any debris buildup. Now these will be painted in most cases, but you still want to make sure that these two mounting surfaces are nice and free of debris or even burrs, because that could create an uneven mount. The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to want to mount this in a way that it is opposite of where your incoming shaft is. So if the customer's shaft was coming up from the bottom, say it was mounted to a conveyor, then this would be okay. If it was the opposite, then you would turn it this way. It's kind of almost symmetrical, but not. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to put our bolts in place. For demonstration purposes, we're going to just use a regular wrench. But it's important that you follow the specifications in the SEW-EURODRIVE technical notes and also the operating instructions so that you hit the proper torque amount. Now, how this is typically mounted is there's going to be some type of yoke that you have on your end that's going to bolt to this torque arm. As I mentioned before, there's a little bit of a rubber piece there, and that allows for misalignment. That's a key thing to remember. You want to have movement. In fact, this gearbox should have a little bit of a rock to it as your conveyor or whatever it is that you have this mounted to is operating. That's a good thing, because if you try to get everything fixed very tightly and you take out this misalignment, nothing's ever going to be perfect, and those forces are going to move somewhere. So if your gearbox isn't moving, those forces are moving through your gearbox into your shaft and your seals. You can actually crack the housing if you don't allow for movement. It can also lead to leaks between your flanges and your seals. So that's again something that you need to pay close attention to. A little bit of movement is actually good. Now that we have this torque arm installed, we're going to think about our next type of torque arm. So we'll take this off and we're going to show you the other one. Now that we've removed the bottom style torque arm, let's go ahead and move on to the installation of a Banjo style torque arm. Now the unique thing about this torque arm is you notice it has several holes, and this allows you to be able to mount it in different degrees of angle. You don't use all the holes, you only have 4 bolts that you're going to mount, but you want to try to get it in 90-degree increments if you can from the point that it's mounted. So in this sense, this is okay, this is okay, and this is okay. But you can still turn it to a 45-degree angle in order to meet the needs of the installation. For this particular installation, I'm going to demonstrate it being opposite of the motor. As I mentioned with the other torque arm, again, check your surfaces to make sure that there's no burrs, everything's nice and smooth, and that way you can put everything into place properly. So we'll put this down, and then we'll put our bolts into place. As you notice, I'm skipping a hole for each of the bolts, and that's important. You always want to have your bolts evenly distributed apart from each other, as you see here. Now we'll go ahead and tighten this up, and again, always follow your torque specs when you're doing this in the field. This is just for demonstration purposes. Now that you have your torque arm in place, you're able to put it into position, and just like we mentioned with the other torque arm that's bottom mount, you want to make sure that you have a little bit of clearance there so that you can allow for misalignment. You want that movement. And that's how you install a Banjo style torque arm. Now let's move on to the Gummy Buffer style F-box torque arm. Our third and final torque arm design that we're going to discuss is called the Gummy Buffer. The Gummy Buffer is unique to the F-box, or what we refer to as the snuggler. Now, this particular design includes 2 rubber bushings that have metal discs embedded on them. And as I rotate this around, you can see that the metal discs are outside, pointed out. And that's important because of the fact you want the rubber to be touching the housing in order to absorb any of the shocks and also the force that's being transmitted because of the torque. These gummy buffers are designed to be compressed up to 50%. If you notice during operation that they're getting compressed more than that, that means that you have a problem with the installation or the torque is too much for the system. Now, this rubber is designed to allow for misalignments. And just like our other torque arm installations, you want to have a little bit of movement with the gearbox. So now that we've discussed the 3 different types of torque arms, let's just talk about some reminders in conclusion. First and foremost, you should always follow the specifications that are laid out in the SEW-EURODRIVE operating manual and technical specifications. In addition, you should always inspect your work before you go to re-energize your systems, and that you should follow the proper lockout-tagout procedures as well. Now that you've done all of that, you should have a fine running machine and a perfectly installed torque arm system designed by SEW-EURODRIVE. Something very important to note is that the torque arm is designed to handle the torque that is being transmitted by the SEW-EURODRIVE gear motor. There should be no other forces or weights added to this installation. If you're interested in learning more about SEW-EURODRIVE's components, products, or solutions, please go to SEW-EURODRIVE.com. Together, we drive the world.